We've got another week of preseason data to discuss, and we're joined by ETR's chief spreadsheet socialist, Michael Leone, to break it all down. This is Best Ball Brunch. I mean, ADP.
No.
Let's go.
Pat Fryer Helmuth.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your site.
Jamar. Alpha play chase. Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally piss boys. You're right.
Welcome, everybody. Leone, welcome to the show. I saw you were drafting with Silva last night in a 5-5-5. Have you mentally recovered from that yet?
No, there is no mental recovery. We'll never get back to 100%.
You guys take Dalvin Cook in the 6th round?
We did not, but we'll just do the best we can to get to 99%, but there's no return to my previous form.
Where is Dalvin Cook in Evan Silva's top 150? Is he like running back 19? We need that. I need that information because his immediate reaction was like so bullish. Like I couldn't believe how bullish it was.
He's
where I
pretty
was
bullish. He's got him around 70th overall.
I love Evan. He's the best.
Yeah. We were talking about before we went live here how we're feeling a little bit burnt out of drafting. It's kind of the final stretch. We're also at a debate on multi-tabling drafts.
What?
Davis was pro multi-tabling.
I'm definitely burnt out on multi-tabling. My multi-tabling days are behind me, I think.
Here's the thing. If you're going to dedicate the time to drafting and not reading or whatever your thing is, really dedicate that time to drafting. Don't be doing one draft and on Discord and on Twitter or whatever. Just sit down and knock the drafts out. That is my thesis on it because I still want to be a human being.
You just said sit down there. You said you take your dog for a walk and do 5 drafts at once. So there's no sitting there. How do you even do that?
That is
enriching.
really difficult.
That's enriching.
You're multi-tabling while like doing something active at the same time.
Yeah, I'm enriching my dog's life. I'm getting my steps in, and I'm hammering
drafts.
Yeah.
See, my thing is like when I want to do a draft, I feel like if I multi-table, I just do a worse version of all those drafts than I would have done if I just did one draft. So then I end up feeling
multiply
really bad about those drafts, and I'm exhausted.
So you're not wrong, but you have to multiply. So let's say your EV in Best Ball Mania. Let's say your expected value in each draft. Napkin math. Let's make it $50, and then let's say you're 20% or so worse on every draft. Well, would you rather have a bunch of $50 EV drafts stacked on top of each other, or would you rather have exponentially 3 times more drafts of $38 of expected value? I would rather have like 700 teams drafted by week 1 of the season to get as much.
I think I'll have 700 teams drafted though. It's just not. I just didn't multi-table them very much.
Are you just
cut into my life more often?
Yeah, that's it. I'd rather have like a horrible hour of drafting and have it be miserable, but like knock out 3 or 4. Then
Leone and I agree because I still want to do other stuff. I still want to go golf. I still want to skateboard. Like I don't want to just be drafting 14 hours a day.
I'm like 95% slow drafts though, is how I get around this problem.
That's even worse for me. I can't do the mental. I mean, it depends how many slow drafts a minute at a time. But
Davis just did the You got to turn off the underdog notifications. You just
I did the other thing. I have every notification on my phone except for text messages, underdog, DraftKings, and drafters is turned off on my phone. So the only notifications I get right now are when I'm on the clock or if someone texted me.
No, the move is you burn through all the. Because I've been in slow draft hell, okay? I've gone there. The move is you get all the drafts done, or you get as many as you can, and then you set a timer for like 10 minutes before the next time you'll time out, and then you turn off the notifications on underdog. So you're not going to get bugged. You're not going to get bugged. You just have the timer going. When the timer goes off, it's time to go check your app again.
No. If anything, I would turn my phone on Do Not Disturb. But I just made 3 picks. I just made 3 picks while you were talking. Like that's
So
That's
this is like the opposite of your multi-tabling point. The point, like, it cuts into your life more if you're doing it that way.
But I'm,
Kareem's right.
I'm on a fantasy football podcast right now. It would be
Sure.
more. It would be
Single
less
tasking,
efficient.
Davis, be focused and be present with us, please.
I'm gonna do my. I'm not fast drafting during the show. If I was
You're not
fast
doing your
drafting
best.
during-
While I was talking, you were drafting.
but I got the gist. I got the gist of what you
You understood like the third of the words you said. That's fine. Let's move on here to the risers and fallers. There's a lot to chat through this week. Here's the 10 largest risers from this past week. A bunch of big movement. I think the past, before preseason hit, we weren't seeing 10% increases in ADP from many players. This week we have 10 of them at least that increase in ADP by at least 10%. So a lot of movement here. I wanted to start with talking through Zeke. And I think also Ramondre fits into this discussion as well. He's on the list of the fallers. Zeke for me is someone who I was drafting the free agent running backs. I was not drafting Zeke for whatever reason. Maybe that's a leak. And I've had a hard time stomaching this new price. So start with you, Leone. What do you think about Zeke ranked now at sort of the 150 range for ADP? It hasn't felt like a good click to me, but curious what your thoughts are.
I mean, it seems outrageous. I was drafting some Zeke past his original ADP. Like, his original ADP was probably correct. Like nothing really changed except we know he's on a team now. But like, that was, I mean, what were the likelihood he wasn't going to sign with someone? Like, it was probably pretty low that he wasn't going to sign at all. So I don't really think that much has changed for Zeke.
Yeah. I mean, anybody want to make the pro Zeke case?
I'll make a slight pro case.
It's very easy. He gets the goal line work, and Pierce Strong and Kevin Harris don't play at all, and he fat guys his way to 550 combo yards, but 8 touchdowns.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Like, I think, if you need some early season running back help in particular, where, like, I mean, he's not going to be super productive in the early season, but it's like he'll be the least dusty in the early part of the year. And you're just hoping he falls in the end zone a couple times. I think around pick like 150 is okay. I mean, I'm certainly not going to be excited to take him, but it's when you're building out these running back rooms, you get to that range and you're like, do I want to reach a bit for Tyjae Spears because I want the upside or whatever? Or do I have upside? I have a Javonte, right? I've got maybe a Breece Hall or someone like that. And what I'm really looking for is someone to just help me get along in the early part of the year, or just a guy that I know will have some kind of role for most of the year.
So this is part of a larger discussion, and maybe we can get into it a little bit later. But I've really noticed, starting right about after the QBs go, Dak, Kirk, Geno, and Daniel Jones, there's basically no one I want to pick. It's like, okay,
it's horrible.
So honestly, I can't believe, and no one let Soccer Dave know that I'm saying this. I'm just taking guys I like. I'll take Jalen Warren 10 spots ahead. I will take Rashee Rice 15 spots ahead. I will take, and especially once you get to the Van Jefferson, KJ Osborne, Rondale Moore, Jonathan Mingo, like literally those guys are just not clickable for me. I'm never clicking Adam Thielen.
Clickable.
I will just take Jalen Hyatt 20 spots ahead of ADP. I don't care because I'm not clicking these total dust balls. I know Leone is cringing right now, but like DJ Shark, what does DJ Shark do for this team?
No,
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
Here's what I did. So I was in a pit bull right before this, a pit bull slow, and I am sitting there and I only had 4 wide receivers, and I had Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. I don't have Josh Allen on this team. I forget. I think I have Deshaun Watson or Dak or someone like that. So I'm going to need maybe 2 more quarterbacks, right? At least 1 more. And I've got this Bills thing built out. So what's the smart thing to do when I need that 5th wide receiver? I ended up taking Juju. I did it. I took Juju Smith-Schuster. And it was the grossest thing ever. But to your point, Davis, there's no one in I was like literally like 20 picks of people
You're just
scrolling.
You're scrolling and you're like, oh,
anything.
Like Donovan Peoples-Jones. What does Donovan Peoples-Jones do for this team? Like, not like I don't know. So
I kind of like
taking,
DPJ.
I kind of like DPJ too.
I'm just taking,
I like a few of these guys you guys are talking about. I mean, you guys.
Like, I'm just taking Luke Musgrave 20 spots ahead. I'm taking Michael Wilson in the 16th round. Like, I'm not taking these dust balls.
Wow, this is like full on live a little capitulation from Davis right here.
It is wild how bad round 10 is. Round 10 is like the worst round in the
Dude, Juju as wide receiver 5 is like completely fine. You guys are
so
disgusting. You guys have jumped the shark on Juju. Like, you guys are acting like you're being poisoned to take Juju as well. Like,
I'm being
that's like how you should be building, is like not overdoing receiver.
I know, Leone, but I fucking hate it. I did it, okay? Jesus.
That's why, honestly, like structurally, that's why I have so much Geno Smith and Anthony Richardson, because they're going in a range where I do not like the skill position players. So it's just it's so easy to take Anthony Richardson round 10, and then you're like, all right, I can take Alec Pierce or I can take Josh Downs, and it's completely fine.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think some of these guys like Myers, Juju, I like
Myers.
Myers is good.
Yeah. Some of these guys I like, but I kind of agree with you. Like, I don't know. When I get to the running backs and it's like P Ryan and A Chain, I've been like saying I just kind of want Warren over those guys and reaching like 10 spots of ADP. Maybe that's dumb, but I've been doing some things like that.
I think that's fine.
Warren's my most drafted player.
Ranked ahead of those guys. I think that's fine. Like, I mean, you still want to mesh your rankings with the ADP, so I don't think it's like you're not blind. Like, I don't think anyone's suggesting to blindly draft off ADP. It's like there's a balance between the two, right? Like, you don't want to like double count and be like
more so. What I'm saying, Michael, is like round 14. Do I need to take Adam Thielen because Adam Thielen is the ADP guy there, or do I take a guy who I like really like his range of outcomes better? Like, is reaching in round 14 structurally really, like, I agree. I'm not reaching in round 7. I'm not taking guys in the top 100 picks, 10 spots ahead of ADP. Honestly, probably hardly ever. But round 14, like, I do not care. I am taking.
Yeah, I mean, the draft capital doesn't really matter as much at that point.
And we're getting new information right now.
I would so the spend $3 on a $1 guy. Like, oh no.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, some of it depends on like how you're structured. Like, Thielen might just add nothing to your team, right? Like, but I do think acting like a guy like him is completely unusable in best ball. Is like in managed, sure, like you're just crossing Adam Thielen off. Like, there's no situation on the planet where you're drafting Adam Thielen in a managed league, right? Like,
yeah,
this was all a long con to get you on the show and explain to everyone why you need to be drafting Adam Thielen.
Well, I barely have any, but like you're acting like a starting wide receiver in best ball is worth being picked at some point, no matter.
No, I agree. I just think Thielen's been egregiously priced all year, and it's very difficult for me to select him. But I did take him over the weekend once because he fell to like
a lot. I barely have any too.
I mean,
he fell into me in like a
Davis gave, but
he fell to me in a Bulldog, like I think 30 picks past ADP, and at that point when it's like him versus like I don't know Khalil Shakir, like those were some of the wide receivers available. I'm like, I'm just taking like this is fine this is where Thielen should go here, right? Like that's totally.
Well, it's one of those things where like
Tutu Atwell versus Adam Thielen. I know where my chips are placed on that one.
Well, fair enough, but I mean
Like, Tutu, what is the actual ceiling on Tutu Atwell? Like, I mean, you guys talk about. I mean, David, you talk about ceiling a lot, but like, what is the ceiling?
He scores 2 70-yard touchdowns in the 3-week sprint.
And what if he's the guy you need, Leone? Think about that.
All right, let's keep this. Let's keep this on track. We're already talking about Tutu Atwell in minute 13.
I did want to say there is something to Leone's point on Thielen, like because Thielen's been expensive enough that we have to like think about the talent case. I've often made the case that he's washed, but like I have a ton of Devontae Parker, and like Devontae Parker rates terribly, and a lot of the other things that I like. It's just that he's priced at a level where you're like he's a starting wide receiver. So as soon as Thielen does get to the point where all you need to make the case for him is that he's a starting wide receiver, then I do think we should be open to taking him. It's just that I just think he hasn't been priced like that for most of the.
Yeah, he's been priced above Mingo, which to me has made absolutely zero sense. Like that's why I've had none of him, because it's like, why would I ever click Thielen over Mingo? But now that he slides, sure. Anyways,
what was with the Chark slander? I mean, I think Chark's fine.
Well, so Chark, I think he's okay too, but man, I'm a little worried about Chark with the injury stuff, and again, this is just one data point, but if you look at Harmon's like reception perception stuff, he was literally like the worst wide receiver that Harmon charted like last year, and it wasn't even close. Like I think he's kind of known as this like athletic guy that can win deep, and he did do that a little bit last year. Like his yards per route run aren't terrible, but his yards per route run is like worse than Devontae Parker's, but he goes like 40 picks earlier and he's paid less than Devontae Parker. I know you don't have to compare every pick to like someone who goes late, but it's just like, if I can get the routes, like deep threat guy that like maybe doesn't have anything left in the tank, I can just wait a while and get Devontae Parker and not.
I also
I'd rather
think
just take Michael Wilson than him if I'm betting on a guy running 9 routes on a crappy team.
I'll bet DJ Chark against Michael Wilson.
I'll bet you will. I'll sure. $50, Michael Wilson, more fantasy points week 15, 16, 17, half point PPR.
I mean, you've changed the bet, but yeah, sure.
That's the bet. It's the bet. That's the bet we're making.
That's not the only consideration. But
make
sure,
it second half of the season or something, like last 6 weeks.
Sure. Week 8 to 17. Sure. Okay.
Let's keep this on track here. DJ Moore, I want to talk through.
It's not on track, Sam. It's long off track.
DJ Moore is up 6 picks.
Why?
I don't really know
Congrats
why.
to him on catching a screen pass. Congrats.
It's purely off that camp highlight. Yeah, like this one. Okay, I will have like so close to 0 of any pick in the first 5 rounds. I think I will have the heaviest fade on DJ Moore. I wouldn't necessarily have if he was at like pick 50, but now that he's rising, like, man, I'm gonna have like 0.
I've
DJ
got
Moore.
2% on 285 underdog teams.
Yeah.
I got him on like a really high stakes team randomly because those are the drafts where he falls.
Where he falls.
Let me make the bear case because I think I'm the more bull. So I have 11.5% DJ Moore. I thought he was a pretty strong pick at the 4-5 turn where you could pair his potential breakout with Fields.
I have some there.
I have absolutely 0 issue with that.
Was reasonable. I mean, that's
and you know, you could. I wrote an article about like how it was pretty easy actually because Burrow, the dynamics of the draft for really until Burrow's calf strain meant that often because of the late second round ADPs, someone has Mahomes, someone might have Allen, someone might have Hurts on the front half of the board. So you could push Fields around and you had Burrow was covered. The Chase or Higgins drafter is usually there without a quarterback. They'll take Burrow. Fields will come back to the mid 5th if you just go ahead and reach for DJ Moore in the late 4th. And I have a bunch of teams constructed like that. If you're taking Moore in the early 4th, there's no chance you're getting him with Fields. And I do really, it's like not, and here's the other thing. I do have some more teams with Drake London where I took Drake London in the 4th and then Moore came around to the early 5th. And now I've got that little mini going, but there's no correlation that's really, I mean, I guess you could get Pitts at the end of the beginning of the 6th or the end of the 7th. Sorry.
Pitts has been falling. I've got some.
Yeah.
I did a best ball mania this morning on a Kelsey team, but I took Kyle Pitts in the 8th round because I was like, Kyle Pitts in the 8th round. Like I'm just.
So you could do a more 4th Pitts 8th thing. But I don't know. I mean, I just think he's so much less appealing if I know I'm locked out of Fields. And I don't understand why he's risen up. I thought he was like an early 5th round value that I was okay reaching on in the late 4th to get that stack. But now in the early 4th, he just feels kind of egregiously priced.
I think it's worth keeping in mind that he started where he's going now, right? Like he started there and he dropped. Like
when it was only nerds drafting off of the spreadsheets, he went down, and now that people are seeing real football and we have more like badgeless drafters, he's going back up.
Yeah, and I mean you've just got the highlight, and I think it didn't take people much to move him back up because the market kind of initially wanted him here anyway. Like for a while there, like you had to, it was like 3-4, you had to stack Fields and Moore like early, like very early. Yeah. And then it got to 4-5, which was like, as you said, Pat, like that's totally fine. Like that makes a lot of sense. And then I don't know. I don't want to like, it doesn't take anyone who does very much projections work to just be like, the pass attempts just aren't there unless he earns a 30% target share, and he's never been a 30% target share guy. So it's just,
I mean, he could be. There are multiple ways
could.
that the fade loses. Yeah,
there's
he
ways
could
it
be.
loses. It's just, I'm fine making that bet. I wouldn't say I'm not scared by it because I love DJ Moore. Like, I think he's awesome, but like it just kind of like you need some outlierish things to happen for sure.
I think what the Bulls will point to is that Justin Fields was a very good passing prospect in college when he, was surrounded by stud wide receivers. So, I can squint and excuse some of Fields' stuff from early in his career because he was dealing with, Darnell Mooney as his wide receiver one. Like, I kind of get it, but it still feels like way too priced up. Like, I don't know. And also, like, DJ Moore, he's what, like, the 20th best receiver in the NFL. Like, I don't think he's like a top 10, even top 15 wide receiver if I was to go through him and rank him. Like, he's good, but is he really that good?
That's
like,
a good point.
I don't know.
I'd probably say he's top 10 to 15, but even still, like, you've got to, I mean, make a big leap on his talent to draft him where
it is really not a criticism of DJ Moore, who all of us have loved for a long time. It's just the reality of the situation that he's in, and the fact that they added other talented guys to theoretically catch passes at the same time. Like, you maybe in a way, I don't know if this is true or not, you'd maybe be more bullish if it was like DJ Moore on an island with Justin Fields. But like the fact that like, oh, Mooney is like this guy who's earned targets and Chase Claypool is this total unknown, and they have Cole Kmet, who they're going to run out there for 90% of the snaps. Like, Sam, I do agree. Like, it definitely has been forgotten that Fields was this like uber talented. He was not drafted to run for 1,000 yards as a quarterback. This is not like an Anthony Richardson situation.
I guess with Fields too, though, it's not so much an indictment that like I'm not saying Fields sucks and can't pass, but I'm saying they're not going to call a lot of pass plays.
Right.
And he takes a lot of sacks and he scrambles a lot. Like those things are who he is. Like, not even necessarily like those, it's just hard to get to the pass attempts, even if he is good.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think, not to pick on this comment in the chat, he's making the comparison to Diggs and people are making the comparison to AJ Brown. Like, I think that's the problem, guys. Like, DJ Moore is not in the same tier of wide receiver. Even Diggs in Minnesota, like, looked way better by Harmon's like chartings. Like, Harmon, likes more, and the advanced metrics like more, but it's not the same tier as Diggs.
Yeah.
Like, it's a stretch.
Is like we were on Diggs, so like it's not like we're not aware this stuff can't like I think like Davis, we had a silver bullet team that almost won that year with Josh Allen and Diggs.
Diggs was also like a 6th round pick that year. He switched teams, right? Like, wasn't he like?
Yeah, but that was a.
I had Josh Allen. I had Josh Allen and Diggs.
That was a different time. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's probably similar wide receiver range that DJ Moore is going now. And like the comparison to the Hurts stuff too, to me, is like wild too. Like, it's not the same. Like, it's not the same.
All right. Let's move on.
I think, I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
If I was, I'm happy now to basically take none, but I have 11%. So maybe I'll float down to 7% or something by the end of the summer. And I think I'm perfectly happy. Like, I'll be very pleased with the way I played it. If I was in your guys' shoes, like, and I saw DJ Moore in the middle of the fourth, I'd probably take some, because I do think he's got the potential to combine the best quarterback play that he's ever had, a clear number one in an offense, and Justin Fields takes a step forward, and like, you really couldn't take him over Christian Watson. You couldn't do that,
right? Right.
Like,
yeah, I mean,
those are like
that.
I guess
Green Bay Packers
are all like
Claypool.
prerequisites.
Yeah, but I think he pays off pretty nicely at the middle of the fourth. If
all three of those things could happen, and he'll just be like, okay. That's why.
That's the part I don't agree. I think you're going to be very happy with a 4th round receiver who is a clear number one, and his quarterback takes a step forward, because they're going to throw more if that happens.
I'm projecting they better. I mean, they better. I'm projecting them to throw like way more already. So
yeah. But what do you have as target share at? Probably something reasonable, right? 25%
like,
or something.
probably like 25% with like a ceiling of like 30%.
All right. Well, in that ceiling outcome, he's not paying off pretty easily. 30%.
Oh, I'm sure he is, but like when you mix like the bets on him, like
yeah.
But like, it just the math is so against him in targets. Like, it's hard to even like. I mean, for him, like he might have like 100 targets. Like,
Oh
I mean,
God.
well, I mean, look.
I
like,
mean, that is so dire.
Yeah, it's not good.
Maybe I'm off on that, but
I mean, no, 100 target season for him could be a 30% target share. I mean, that's 25% of 400. So like, it's not really that far off. Yeah.
Justin Fields' passing line last year was not that much better than Cooper Kupp's receiving line in 2021. I'm dead serious.
Leone, that is people say Leone has his nose buried too far in the spreadsheets, but that is evidence of just a sharp analytical mind right there.
Step out once in a while.
Let's move on to Darren Waller here. He's also kind of a just preseason hype highlights riser to some extent. It's not like we learned new information about his role. I am kind of out on him at this rising ADP just to age concerns.
I am chasing. I'm chasing.
You're chasing. Yeah. I mean, I see the ceiling.
Out.
I see the ceiling on the target share. I can see how he is just the Giants' clear number one wide receiver. I think he'll play in the slot. I think he'll play on the outside. They'll kind of move him around and scheme stuff for him. But
for months we've known this.
But this is so the ADP change is just, you know, I mean, it's that old fantasy adage like, oh, I got to see it, you know, and now people have seen it. They've seen that all this stuff that the guys at training camp, you know, there was that story that the Giants sent him home from practice one day because Daniel Jones wouldn't throw to anyone else in practice. And then we saw it in a game and everyone's like, oh shit, it's real. And then the other thing with Waller is that people have been so snake bitten with him. I think that was a huge part of why he was so cheap to begin with, is that everyone's got a Darren Waller story. Like, oh, I drafted this great team. I got a sick value on Darren Waller. And then I just held him on the bench forever and he did nothing, you know, or whatever.
He still outscored Kyle Pitts last year, Davis. Just say no, because I think we had a bet on that one.
No, I think you and I had a bet on that one, Leone.
I'm pretty indifferent on Waller right now. I know it seems fine. Like Pat was making a good point about like the correlation stuff. Like I really do like Daniel Jones at values to just structurally take like elite tight end and know you can get Daniel Jones at good stack.
I was doing that a lot when he was in the 7th. I would do that a lot. Yeah. Like I'd be like, oh sweet, I'll just take, and you have Cooper Kupp, and then you reach for Darren Waller a little bit in the, you know, like the 704 or whatever. Then you go back and get Jones. It was a lot of fun. But this new price is nuts to me.
Yeah, you do have to take him here.
I don't know if it's nuts, but it's definitely high. He went in FFPC main slow that I'm in right now. He went in the 3rd round, like middle of the 3rd. So he's definitely.
I haven't seen him not go in the 3rd round in FFPC.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 2 years of kind of poor performance from. I mean, mostly due to injury. Like you can chalk it up to injury, but it has been since 2020 that he's really been good. So
that's what I feel like as a market, like you're weighing the risk reward, and like early on it was like, oh, people don't realize that like Waller can get down the field and is going to be like the wide receiver 1, and now it's like people have totally forgotten what you said, Sam, that like he hasn't been good for a couple of years and he's kind of older. Like
the thing with him too, my last point on Waller is just, if the Giants wide receiver, like I do want exposure to Daniel Jones. So if the market was forcing me to pay a premium for Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, then I think I would capitulate and take some Waller because I want some Jones stacks. But man, those wide receivers are just completely free. So I do understand like it can be week 17 and Waller is the guy and not those wide receivers, but just like cost adjusted, I'm just like, man, let me stack up 2 of those wide receivers for nothing and pass on Waller.
Look, I will eventually have probably like 25% Darren Waller because in 2 years, everyone's going to be like, he's dust and he's going to be an 18th round pick. Gerald. And and it's like, yeah, but he's a big wide receiver, plays tight ends, and he still can do that, even though he's going to, you know, get a rotational usage now because he's old. But at this, I don't want to be in on the guy who's got a rising price who wasn't good in 2021. Like leaving aside 2022, and he had this really deep ADOT and was kind of used to like clear space for Devontae Adams. And I mean, that's a big red flag in its own right. But 2021 was also a down year, and he turns 31 in September, and he's dealt with a number of soft tissue injuries over the course of his career. Like this just strikes me as a very fragile. Like elite tight end is already kind of a lower advance rate, more of a playoff bet. But if it's a playoff bet and I'm taking an older player, that also worries me.
So brutal for my pro. I was just checking stuff this morning, and I did get a little bit of cold sweats seeing. I just didn't realize how much Kyle Pitts I had, seeing $997 of entry fees associated with Kyle Pitts just to this point, with a lot more drafts left to go, is like kind of making me feel feverish. That's a lot of Kyle Pitts.
I have stopped taking Rashad Penny, but every time I refresh my my exposures, he goes up somehow.
He's still at the top.
He's even higher than before.
It's the slow drafts. It's the slow drafts where you took him a month ago.
It's the slow drafts finishing.
That's what it is, Sam. It's slow drafts finishing up. I actually didn't realize what it was until now. You're right. It's all my fucking
I have that same problem. I keep trying to get Penny off the top of my exposure list, but he just keeps he can't get him off there. It's brutal.
I got a little bit of alpha here before we move on to Deuce Vaughn on DraftKings slow drafts. So when you enter them, that's the ADP and the ranks that stays in that individual draft. So I just entered, like, so let's say you entered 10 slow drafts on Monday. It is Monday. So you entered 10 slow drafts today. Whatever ADP changes happen over the next 10 days will not be reflected inside of that. So you're drafting off of stale ADPs. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're doing the DraftKings drafts.
DraftKings slows are a nightmare, and I won't do them.
I'm in 31 right now.
I'm in 26.
Good God.
Brutal. Slow
I feel like the $10 ones, like it's so plus EV that like if I auto draft half the rounds, I'm half
that's
the teams,
the only way I have a chance of finishing the $10 to do the slows. So I might do it.
Could you just put in like ETR ranks and auto draft those?
You got to. I still don't know where to adjust my positional settings on DraftKings. You got to adjust something though, because I ended up with like 4 quarterbacks on a team or something. Like I auto drafted when I was in Italy.
I'm gonna do that on drafters. I'm gonna upload ranks and set and click enable auto pick to fire, because I won't be able to finish.
I did the star trick on and sometimes like you don't know how far down to go on the stars. So I did like a Bears Falcons thing, and I went all the way down. I starred Mac Hollins. So I got to the level
round 8, Mac Hollins.
Yeah, well, so I'm in round 20, and I had Anthony Richardson, and I was like, oh, I actually could use another tight end, so I'm gonna get Jelani Woods, but Mac Hollins was higher in the queue, so I was like going to change the queue, and I didn't succeed. So now I'm just like stuck with Mac Hollins in my 20th round pick. But the DraftKings positional limits, I don't know how they work, but they gave me Jelani Woods. They wouldn't let me auto Mac Hollins. So thank you, DraftKings.
The positional limits are, I don't even know where to change them.
I don't know. I only have like 7 receivers, and they were like, that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, they're way too low on like running back, wide receiver, the positions you want to draft the most.
That's
so
like brutal.
A bunch of like, you draft like Will Levis and Trey Lance in the 20th round instead of a receiver.
God. Well, anyways, let's move on here. James Cook, Leone, the Bills homer in the house. Are you chasing up this James Cook steam?
I don't know. Initially, I was not. I'm a little worried that like I just don't know what the workload, potential for him really truly is. I was drafting a ton of him early in the offseason, but I know Levitan likes him a lot. I know Gretsch called him a target even with his ADP rising. So maybe there's more there than I'm seeing. I'm just a little concerned that where he's going, he just can't see I guess the opportunity cost isn't huge at running back there. So
this is my question.
That's a cop-out way of saying I'm pretty like indifferent.
Yeah.
This is my question to you. Let's say this role that he's had in the preseason, which is like super bullish, remains in the regular season. Like theoretically, James Cook with 70% of the touches, both carries and targets out of this backfield for the Bills. How valuable is that? Right? Is it like,
I mean, you're taking him earlier than where he's going now, if that's, for sure.
Okay.
But the thing that's a little bit weird though, and I remember this from doing stat chasing last year, is that you would see these weeks where Devin Singletary would get 70% snap rate, like run a bunch of routes, and it was still worth like no fantasy point. Like the Bills just structurally just like don't really do much with their running backs, even if they're out there running routes. Maybe James Cook, I think, is a better pass catcher, route runner than Devin Singletary. So maybe things can change. But, with the addition of Dalton Kincaid, with the addition of Deontay Hardy, I think actually like the tight ends and wide receivers are better now. So like, is this the year they're going to use the running backs in the passing game? Like we haven't seen it for 2 years. So that's where I'm like, if James Cook, even if he's out there a bunch, like I think we're overrating it slightly. And I do think either Damian Harris or Latavius Murray is going to be the goal line back. Like, I don't think Cook is going to win that over one of those two guys. So to me, it's like, I just think it could be a lot of empty snaps. Like we've seen that with the Bills running backs for 2 years in a row. So
yeah, to your point too about Singletary, when he did finally hit that ceiling for a stretch, they were just running the ball super efficiently and like kind of grinding. And like, I don't know if he would get the carries that Singletary got in that stretch. Like I'm pretty skeptical he would.
No, it's a bit of a leap of faith that they're going to use the running back more in the passing game. And I think it's not that far of a leap because Singletary sucks as a receiver. Like he's not even going to be the Texans' third down back. It's hilarious. Like they're going to have, he was like a passing down back for the Bills and they're going to have like Dare Ogunbowale or something play third down snaps and Singletary's just like an early down backup there. So the fact they didn't use him in the passing game just like indicates they know what they're doing. And they tried to get J.D. McKissick, right? Remember, they tried to sign him and Washington signs him back. They traded for Nyheim Hines. They drafted James Cook in the second round. They've signaled in a number of different ways that they would like to have a back who can do something for them in the receiving game. And that could be part of like them trying to punish these defenses for, sitting back and playing too high on them. Like they are definitely one of those teams that needs to come up with solutions for that. So I think Kincaid goes to that too. So they can play more power personnel. So the receiving side of it is easier for me to like, yes, I haven't seen it before, but like we have lots of evidence. In addition, when you look at James Cook and what his skill set is, like he looks like an exciting receiver. So, that part of it I get. I do worry about how many touchdowns he could realistically score.
That's specifically for underdog. That is what I'm worried about. I think DraftKings full PPR, like you could tell me he has a 50 catch season or whatever, or a 60 catch season. Especially if the cover high, the two high safeties continues to be a problem. But like projecting a 12 touchdown season for a Bills running back, I mean, they would really have to commit to this, Josh doesn't get to run around the goal line type stuff, which he might just be like, sorry, dude, I'm calling my own number.
Another thing that concerns me, like if you look at them historically with backs, they haven't really been great at what they've done in terms of drafting them and utilizing them. Like they've spent a lot of draft capital on running backs over the years. And they did want to bring in McKissick and Hines, but the Bills are a team that will bring players in for like really specific things. Like, so I don't know if that signals that they want to throw to the running back a lot, or they just want to have that type of running back for like specific situations, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm like articulating that right, but like Hines, they barely played after they traded for him. Right. Like, and I could see a situation where the base game plan is not to throw the ball to James Cook. They just want to have that option for like a few plays a game here and there. Yeah. But I mean, it's ultimately like an explosive player on a really good offense. So like, I get it, but I'm a little bit worried.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget who made this comp. I think it was maybe the Ringer fantasy football show that I was listening to. And they compared like trying to get Josh Allen to use a pass catching running back is like trying to get your dad to like wear the shirt that you bought him and he just doesn't like you give your dad some gift and he just like keeps wearing like the same shitty like polo he'll
do it
for
once
20 years. Yeah, he'll do it once. Yeah.
That is a very apt comp.
Yeah. It's just I'm just skeptical. Yeah, I agree with Leone put it well. Like good, I think a talented player and a good offense. I'm just like skeptical of how all the pieces come together and Josh Allen like all of a sudden starts using this pass catching running back. But I think it's okay. It's not completely unreasonable steam, I don't think.
Well, do you think it continues? Like, do you think he goes?
Yeah,
I think continues to rise. Because I do too. Because when you look at the high stakes ADP, he's quite a bit higher than this.
Yeah,
and I think that's an indication like of who
I took him in the 6th round of a main event.
I
yeah.
don't think I can do that. I don't think I'm there.
I don't think I'm there either.
And
I think he's
I guess
best,
like 6-7 turn. I mean,
I was drafting with some guys who get very nervous about our running back 2. Every year we're like starting like Philip Lindsay at running back 2, and these guys just get really nervous. So they were like, let's just do James Cook. Fine,
yeah,
whatever.
I mean, we have him, I think, in the 8th round of a main event, which I'm obviously like very pleased with. But so
for sure.
I liked him before. I'm overweight. I have like 12% Cook, but he's like one of those players where like some of these guys we're gonna just like have to say goodbye to, right? We had a nice July together, but like it's time to move on. You know,
It was a
He's
summer
going
fling.
with, like,
it was a summer.
I mean, I'm probably personally I'm swinging on Javonte Williams before James
I
Cook.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I mean, I'm almost afraid to say the other person I'd rather take because you guys will just make fun of me. But like,
David
I'd rather
Montgomery.
take David Montgomery.
I knew it.
James
I
Cook.
knew
No,
it.
David Montgomery is a good pick. Don't let these Michael.
Yeah.
Do not let these guys
I'm
bully you.
No, even
Montgomery
Gretsch,
ever.
like, I'm a little nervous on Montgomery because like even Gretsch likes him this year, and I'm like something's up. This isn't right.
It's because it gives us we are all at our core the people who were doing spreadsheets like by hand in Excel on all this work at RotoViz in 2014. And one thing we know is that running backs who weigh 220 pounds get more work than running backs who weigh 195 pounds. And Jahmyr Gibbs weighs 195 pounds, and David Montgomery weighs 225. It's really that simple.
I haven't
like-
taken much Montgomery, but he's not that gross. Like he's not priced high enough to where I can really be like, it's disgusting.
Yeah. I feel like
What
James
is up
Cook
with-
should be
yeah.
in between like that tier, and then when you get into like I don't know, like Dalvin, Rashad White, DeAndre Swift, like I'd take Cook ahead of those.
Do
guys.
not put Dalvin in this tier. Do not
Yeah,
capitulate.
Dalvin's
to
not
Evan.
in that tier. Get out of here. He's not even in that tier by ADP. He's in the 90s.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean that's not far. I mean those guys are. The
We'll get to
mid-80s.
Dalvin. We'll talk about Brees and the Fallers. We'll get to the Dalvin discussion. Let's quickly talk Musgrave. This is Steam. I'm buying.
Yeah, you can't get high. You can't get him high enough for me.
I tweeted this out. So the route, the role looks really good for Musgrave, which I think you can kind of think of as the floor for a tight end. He's run nearly all the routes, played nearly all the snaps with Green Bay starters. Even if you think that regresses a little bit once we get like full games, like it still looks like a very good role. And then he's earned 5 targets on 17 preseason routes. Again, very small sample, but like, man, like I think we're seeing everything we want to see from an exciting late round rookie tight end. He's a freak athlete. Obviously his prospect profile is like a little mixed because he was injured, but man, like I don't see why he goes like 30 picks after Laporta. Like I would take Laporta over him straight up, but I think that should be like a very close grouping there. So I'm still buying Musgrave. Leone, curious what you think on Musgrave.
Yeah, I'm still buying, but I think it's like James Cook is just going to keep going up. I don't know
it is.
how long the opportunity is going to last.
I mean, Laporta's up to tight end 14. I bet Musgrave can get to tight end 15, but in like a week.
Yeah. So okay,
Yeah.
a couple questions then for people. Luke Musgrave or Gerald Everett.
Musgrave.
Pretend ADP doesn't exist. Just
I know. I think I'd probably take Gerald Everett, but
I mean,
the offense. I mean, the offense. The discrepancy in offenses is enough for me at the tight end position.
Everett will be way more efficient, but Musgrave has like he's number 5 in the pecking order in Chargers targets. Probably Musgrave might be number 2 in pecking
Yeah, I
order
guess I just like
targets.
I don't know. Maybe I'm too bearish on just like still like how many targets a rookie tight end's going to get. Even though like it looks really good, it looks like he has a job. I just don't know if that translates to just because there's
if
target
you got
opportunity.
if you got Kyle Pitts' rookie season, which obviously I know is like an insane wish
Like
casting.
the
This
best
is
rookie
kind of,
season of a tight end ever. Yeah, that'd be
right.
great.
So this is like 90th. This is like 90th percentile.
90th.
90th.
It wasn't the
This
best.
is
ever.
90th
Didn't
percentile. Yeah,
Gronk-
you should keep
didn't-
drafting Luke Musgrave. If you think that's 90th percentile.
Gronk scored like 11 touchdowns.
Yeah, Pitts did have 1 touchdown his rookie year. It wasn't from a fantasy perspective. It wasn't.
I guess
that-
I was just thinking like the volume and the yards.
He had
like,
1,000
okay.
yards as a rookie.
Okay,
tight
the
end.
yards, yeah, but not total points. I think it's not.
All right,
With,
pure
tight, with tight
fantasy
ends,
points,
it's always
sure.
going to be more about the touchdowns, anyways. I don't know.
So,
I like
Right, so
Luke
Gerald
Musgrave.
Everett's going to score more touchdowns.
Here's my rookie tight end rant. Like quickly, I do think like if you talk about Musgrave's target earning Leone, I agree with that. Like I'm a little bit skeptical of rookie tight ends, but I think historically the problem with rookie tight ends has not been like per route efficiency in terms of earning targets. It's been that they're
But they
always
don't play.
blocked. They're always blocked by like an Austin Hooper type, like Chiga Conko was last year, or Greg Dulcich was last year. Like those guys earn targets at a really high rate last year. They're just barely on the field because some veteran is blocking them. So I'm actually like, I think I'm a little bit fading this narrative that rookie tight ends can't do it. I really think that has to do with some competent blocking veteran, like blocking them from seeing the field more than them not being able to catch some passes. So that's my thought and why I'm sort of more bullish.
I also think
we also take
if you're going to make this bet on a guy and you're like, how many targets can he really have? Are they going to really even pass that much and all that? It is nice that he's a downfield threat. Like that's the role they're going to have him in as a seam stretcher. So he's not, I don't think, going to do what Kyle Pitts did, but it's somewhat similar where like they'll probably split him out wide. Like they'll like use him downfield a fair amount. God, someone was telling me they were using him on an end around.
Yeah, he's gotten some of those.
Practice, he did an end around that he lost 3 yards.
This is Liam because Liam, Kyle and I wanted to take. We wanted to take Hunter Henry instead of Luke Musgrave in our main event, and Liam has like not let us live it down.
That is what it was. I was talking to Liam, and he was like, Hunter Henry's never run an end around in his goddamn life.
Yeah.
So yes, Luke Musgrave. But the other thing I like about him, if I didn't have any correlation tiebreakers, I'd probably go Musgrave over Everett, just because like I don't think Romeo Doubs is that good. Jaden Reed's kind of a whatever prospect.
This is the total bull case: is that he could see 109 targets as the second pass catcher on the Packers.
Yeah, it's not just the tight end competition, which has broken heavily in his favor. Like Tucker Kraft now looks like the tight end 3 behind DeGuara, right? So
DeGuara, Tyler Davis, who played snaps from last year, tore his ACL. So that was actually sneaky, I think, kind of big for Musgrave.
I feel like a lot of times I get heat with projections of like just giving guys volume because it's there. And I kind of feel like I'm on the opposite end of this argument where like I have no dispute that like the target opportunity is there in Green Bay, but like I think we're getting a little optimistic and
we are absolutely getting optimistic because he has the buzz. So that's what your brain wants to project. It's like, sure, if everything goes his way, he could see 110 targets. He could also he could play all these snaps and see 60, in which case all of our excitement was worth nothing.
All right. Yeah. Leone, I'm trying to see where Leone is at on this. Would you take him over Irv Smith?
Yes.
Okay. Dulcich?
I don't know. That feels about. I mean, I think he'll get to that range. I don't think like I would take Everett over him, but I don't think it's like absolutely insane.
Fair enough. Yeah, I do like. I'm not trying to be anti-Gerald Everett. I think he's a pretty good bet where he goes too. Last thing on Musgrave, I was reading about Dane Brugler's prospect profile on the Beast, and Musgrave's background, like prior to football, was in like ski racing, and he talked about how like some of his like moves kind of look like doing slalom on the ski course. And when I read that, I was all the way in after that. So pretty insane background.
I'm in.
How have we not gotten that nugget till now? That's amazing.
Yeah, he was like
really good.
A total Pacific Northwest bro. He was like a lacrosse player, a skier. Like I'm all in on this Musgrave thing. Let's do the Brees Dalvin thing. I think everyone wants to hear about that. Brees is down 10 spots. Pretty big drop. Curious. Starting with you, Leone. Let's start on the Brees side of this discussion. Then maybe we can get to Dalvin. Pick 44. That means Brees is kind of in the same range as running backs like Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, actually slightly after those guys. And then with wide receivers like Terry McLaurin, Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Drake London. What is your stance on Brees in that range?
I think that's about fairly valued in that range, but anytime he slips further than that, I'm pretty excited to get him, and the variance on him has been pretty high. Like on DraftKings, you can get him in round 5 a lot, which to me is just like absolute auto pick. I think in general, these running backs that fall, I'm not as much on Ramondre, but like Jacobs when he was falling, like just if you're drafting these best ball tournaments, you can build these insane teams if you take these running back risks. And it's not like super high stakes that like, I've just been trying to the last week or two like build around guys like Brees and those other running backs that are falling because people are scared.
Yep. Davis,
Leone,
Pat, any thoughts on
well,
Brees?
Leone knows the secret, which is that our entries are going to lose anyway. So you might as well try and build things that can really bink for you when it goes right. I mean, I feel like this is a little bit under discussed in fantasy Twitter. Brees literally at practice before Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook has a shoulder injury and is having his child was born, and he has a legit potential domestic violence suspension. Now, it's probably not going to convey based on what I've read.
And was horrific in every advanced metric last year.
And had his worst advanced match. So, like, really what it comes down to, taking Dalvin and letting Brees fall 10 spots in ADP right now, it's literally just we're giving Aaron Rodgers the power. We're saying Aaron Rodgers just commands it to be so, and therefore it will be so. But I mean, I don't know. Like, Rodgers is not dumb. He's going to see these guys in practice.
Yes, he is.
Okay. Well, yeah, he is. I mean, this is the same guy who completed 100. This is the same guy who completed 101 yards to Jeff Janis on one drive and then ran him out because he like brought him the wrong type of coffee one day or something. So maybe he is. Maybe he is.
Yeah, but Rodgers is also like 40 years old and he's trying to win a Super Bowl. And, you know, maybe he's dumb, but I don't think he's like stone cold moron, like where he can't see what's in front of him, like for 8-9 weeks at a time. Like, eventually, if Brees is back to 100%, he's going to run circles around Dalvin. I will say, like, I have been surprised that ETN is still so cheap. Like,
I so hard agree.
I've been, you know, as I've been looking at how I play this as someone who was very high on Brees before the Dalvin Cook signing, and I have a ton of him. I would love to be taking Brees still because now I get this discount, and I don't mind having a really big position on this uber talented young running back in the middle rounds. But I'm like, you know, it's kind of nice that I can actually sit here in the middle of the fourth and take ETN. And if I'm going to try to play for fifth round Brees ever, like that's the way I can do it. I've been like legitimately shocked that ETN, who has no issues with injury, is going to be healthy for the very beginning of the season. You don't have to worry about, oh, is he going to be a low advance rate player? Like if he hits, he's going to be a high advance rate player. I don't really understand why he's available.
Is it just the Bigsby stuff? I mean, is it really
I think
that
so,
simple?
yeah.
Is it just that?
Yeah. But like to me, like Mixon, you know, Harris, those guys over Brees, like to me, it's get out of here. I have no interest in that. But ETN, I think, as much as I like Brees, I mean, it's hard at this point to say ETN should go behind Brees Hall.
So I've had that same thought with.
Really get that.
Yeah, I've had the same thought, Pat, with ETN and Ramondre. I'm like, I guess like Ramondre, the pass catching upside, you can sell me on that being a lot higher. I guess same with Brees, right? Like those guys have higher pass catching ceilings than ETN. But man, I'm just kind of like leaning into the safety a little bit, and I'm ETN over both those guys right now.
I have ETN over both those guys too.
Yeah, like I just think the upside with ETN is hot. Like I don't know, the Tank Bigsby stuff. I'm like, sure, he's gonna play a little bit, but again, I did this rant last week, so I don't want to do it again. But every running back has a backup that's gonna play a little bit. Like we don't need to freak out about Tank Bigsby. Also, that one goal, that one short yardage carry, people forget in that game that they had like first and goal from the 3, and ETN was on the field. He didn't get the carry, but he was on the field in that situation. Bigsby got like a 3rd and 1, like on the 40-yard line or something, and people are saying, "Oh, short yardage roll, it's Bigsby's, it's over." It's like I don't know about that. So, yeah, Leone, what are your thoughts on that debate of those 3 backs, like Ramondre?
No, I'd have ETN first, probably. I mean, I think the pass catching is a little bit of a concern that they just might not throw to running backs. And they also want to use Hasty a little bit. But ultimately, you know, it's just a really explosive player that I think sometimes when guys don't hit their ceilings in a year, we get like more disappointed than we should. Like, I don't think, you know, like the main takeaway from a lot of people from his first year is, oh, he did catch passes and we thought he would. But like the offense is going to be really good. He's an explosive player. He's a young player. I don't think you really have to overthink it too much. Like guys are going to miss. So like, is there some risk? Yeah, but I'd probably take him ahead of Brees, and I'm kind of bearish on Ramondre. So definitely over Ramondre.
Can we talk about that? Cause I've been weirdly bearish on Ramondre, but in a way where I'm mad at everyone about it because I don't want to be bearish on Ramondre, and I thought I wouldn't be. Like I have him at I have him at 37 in my ranks, but that's below ADP, and it's just like, what are we doing? They did sign someone who's gonna potentially take goal line work. Like that has to factor in some, right?
Yeah, I mean the new price is like decent. Like we were just kind of factoring in from the beginning that they were going to sign someone. Shout out Pat Thorman, he was like really on top of that. So we've had Ramondre basically where he's being drafted now all off season except for very early. But I'm concerned with a couple of things. One, I think he has some dead zone characteristics. Like people don't want to say that because he's a young back that they like, but it's a team that has a tough schedule that could be a really shitty offense, like which is bad. And it's a player that, even though he caught a ton last year, wasn't super efficient. I saw the Jacob tweet, and like I'm not trying to hold it against him because it's good that he got those targets. But yeah, then you bring in Zeke, who like he can take goal line touches and pass block. Those are high value touches. So not if you're going to lose some high value touches and you're going to play on an offense that's not good, it could go bad. It could I don't know. I have much stronger preferences for other players. Like I'd rather take Jahmyr Gibbs for sure, I think.
Yeah, Stevenson's also never been hyper efficient. Like he's been good. I like Stevenson. He's a good player. It's not what?
He's volume dependent. I mean,
he's volume dependent. Yeah. Most running backs. Most running backs are volume dependent, but I don't think there's certain guys who I think kind of rise above that where I'm like Jonathan Taylor, right? Like, obviously you have issues there with whether or not he plays, but like, I'm willing to like overlook some of the volume red flags with Jonathan Taylor because it's like it's Jonathan Taylor. I don't feel that way about Ramondre Stevenson.
I think that's very fair. Yeah.
I'm with Pat. And like Brees and Etienne, you do feel a little bit that way, right?
Like, I do. Yeah. Those guys are crazy explosive. I feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have Etienne over Ramondre. I think with Brees, it would be close. And just the fact that Brees is like falling in some drafts, I'd probably still go Ramondre. I don't know. Again, like I have plenty of Brees. I think like Dalvin signing was a worst case scenario. I know people are saying, oh, it doesn't impact Brees's ceiling that Dalvin signed there. I sort of see where people are going with that argument, but like, I think it inherently impacts the ceiling that Dalvin signed there just because there's plenty of times in NFL history where the worst backup running back just sees the field a lot because the coaches want them to, the quarterback wants him to, like Thomas Jones versus Jamal Charles in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Zeke versus Pollard last year. Like, I don't think we can say Brees doesn't impact like Cook's ceiling. Even if Cook like is not good and Brees is way better, he could be on the field a bunch and that impacts Brees's ceiling.
Yeah. It's like one of these things where I don't like, there's two things. It's what is his ceiling outcome? And is that now fundamentally changed by the signing Dalvin Cook? To that, I say no. I don't think it's fundamentally changed. I think he can still get to a similar ceiling outcome. How likely is that outcome to occur?
Yes.
I think he is now low.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think we all fully agree. And I mean, I don't think Dalvin's the worst pick at his current ADP right now. Like, I think he's okay right there.
I'm definitely not taking Dalvin now. No interest.
He did still have some pretty explosive runs last year. I mean, I guess I'm most concerned that the shoulder is still an issue because I saw some research and stuff on him that like one of his biggest issues last year was like with contact because of the shoulder injury, but like the explosive speed was still there. So
his success rate was horrendous, and in a couple of True Media and NFL Next Gen both had him.
All the Twitter doctors, when he had the surgery the first time, said this is going to be an issue for the rest of his career. This isn't really something that ever goes away for a dude who gets tackled for a living.
So that's fair. I think if you think that, and I think it's a reasonable take, then you don't want him. But I think if you're just like, oh, he's dust, like I'm not drafting him, that's kind of the wrong opinion.
Yeah, I think he's a little mispriced for me. If I knew he had this role and he would have retained, like if it was like him or Khalil Herbert, I don't know, maybe I would have taken. I probably still wouldn't have just because I'm stubborn. Honestly,
I still want Herbert, man. I want Herbert over Dalvin Cook. Herbert could be good. Like he could just, if Herbert is good, he could be the Bears starting running back all year. Like that's pretty simple. He's good. He's a starting runner. If Dalvin's good, then first of all, I think there's a higher chance that Herbert's good than Dalvin. But even if Cook is good, he's still going to have to deal with Breece Hall, who's going to be 100% by roughly week 5. And by the end of the year, he will be 100% coming back from the clean ACL tear. Like he's been on track. He's practicing now. Like he's on track for that. That's a problem. That's a problem for Dalvin Cook's late season upside. So I don't know. He serves a purpose. Like he's kind of like an expensive version of Jamal Williams, Samaje Perine. I think and you could say he's a better pick than those guys because he'll probably have a longer stretch of usefulness. But to me, he's like in that archetype where if I really need the running back help early, he's like a worse version of David Montgomery kind of thing. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I think that's fair. But I think like the high value touches for the Jets are going to be better than for the Bears at the running back position overall. So it's not like a 1-to-1 comparison.
But that's where you have to worry about that contact stuff, right? Like if he sucks at contact.
If you think the shoulder injury fucked him, like that's it. You're out. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, if you're like more unsure on that and think it's possible the shoulder's not an injury, the high value touches for the Jets are going to be better, both receptions and.
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers has made how many dudes has Rodgers made like total fantasy football studs? He's so good at that.
The other thing too is, I mean, contingent value does work both ways. Like we always look at it from the lens of the player we like more, but like Breece is coming back from an ACL injury, or he could just randomly get hurt having nothing to do with that. And Dalvin Cook is like that. He could suck and be amazing in that case.
Yeah.
And I think we can feel really good that Dalvin completely ices the likes of Carter and Zonovan Knight. Like the Jets are not high on these guys at all. Like, the last thing I'll say on Dalvin, and then we can move on. Like we were drafting AJ Dillon in like the 6th last year on basically the same thesis. Like he had a way more talented running back ahead of him in Aaron Jones.
Well, that wasn't really the thesis.
Okay,
is Dalvin AJ Dillon's talent?
Yeah, but is AJ Dillon good?
Yes.
If you asked someone drafting him in 2022, they would have been like, "Yeah, dude, he's really good."
Like, you see those quads, brother?
I'm on team Dalvin. Dalvin Cook is better than AJ Dillon, but whatever. Even if you completely disagree with that, it's like kind of the AJ Dillon bet, but 3 rounds later, right? Like that seems fine.
Yeah, but
I think it's fine. Again, if you think the shoulder is a permanent problem, you're out. But if you don't think the shoulder is a permanent problem, like it's hard for me to see where he's not like a pretty reasonable pick.
Yeah,
he was still like. Just outside the top 10 in fantasy points per game last year. Like he's not dead. He's not terrible.
He's not. I still probably won't take him because I'm stubborn, but like you have outlined a very reasonable and rational argument for why he still can be a good pick where he's going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he can serve a purpose for your team. Like if you were like thinking about drafting James Conner because you need early running back points, like maybe take someone else and go get Cook in the next round or whatever. Like I think, he can serve a purpose. I have him on one Mastiff and I think I'm good, but
I've got him in some high stakes, like crazy to low, like 120s, 110s.
Yeah, I got him.
And I'm just like, that seems great. Let's hit on Miles Sanders here. He is falling off the groin issue. Even this new ADP 71, I think that understates where he's like actually going in drafts now. Maybe it's a small sample from what I'm doing, but I'm seeing him like in the late 80s, like late 70s, like every draft I'm in now. Man, I was not, and Pat, we had this argument in our chat yesterday. I think both of us were out on Sanders. You were even more out on him than I was, but man, like pick 80. I think the math starts to look pretty like irrefutable on Sanders being a good pick there. I guess we'll start with you, Leone. I know you guys like just projections wise in your rankings would be quite high on Sanders at pick 71. Are you actually drafting him? Are you following the ETR ranks there, or how are you dealing with this?
I'm probably drafting him a little bit later, but I'm definitely not out on him. Like you guys know me, I'm a value drafter in general, and I think he's not like that. I think he's in that David Montgomery range right now.
He just got a low key boost too, because Chuba Hubbard has played every running back snap with Bryce Young in the preseason, and Chuba Hubbard's ankle got rolled over on. And I was doing a little bit of digging because Hubbard is one of my biggest positions. I've just been hoovering him up. So he had an ankle injury in 2020 that caused him to miss a bunch of time. and he also suffered an ankle injury to the same ankle last year. There hasn't been an update yet. I'm going to guess we'll get one probably this afternoon from Panthers training camp. But if it would, like, I thought it was projecting like Sanders was going to be in a split with Hubbard based on the stuff that I was reading from Panthers training camp. And if Hubbard is going to be dinged up, not ready for week 1, or comes back too early and he's just suffering from this ankle thing, like, I think they've really broadcasted Blackshear, Sanders, or Blackshear, Spencer Brown. None of these guys are not a part of their plans at all. So if Hubbard's ankle is a problem, what would have maybe been a 60-40 with Hubbard and losing a lot of the long down and distance stuff is actually going to go Sanders' way. Now, you can tell I've really been thinking about this a lot because I went back and looked more at Miles Sanders stuff as a result. Such an interesting profile. The Eagles clearly drafted him with the idea that he was going to be a good long down and distance guy. He saw 65 targets as a rookie. He was so bad. He was so inefficient and got more inefficient.
He was inefficient. Year 1, he was not inefficient.
Year 1, he was good.
Year one, he was good as a receiver.
Actually, if you guys go to Chris Towers' profile, he tweets about this like once a year because it's so startling. There's this play where Sanders messes up his route, gets the target anyways, and drops it. And then basically ever since this play, the Eagles stopped throwing him the ball to the point that I think it was 25 targets for 78 yards was his line as a receiver last year. So I don't think the Panthers signed him to be this long down and distance guy. I still like playing it the Hubbard route, especially because normally when you see the starting running back fall, you'll see a corresponding jump in the handcuffs ADP. But there has not been a corresponding jump for Hubbard. I don't really know why that is, but I still prefer to play it that way.
Because he's also hurt, right?
I just mentioned that he's got this ankle injury. Now, we'll see what happens with this ankle. If it ends up being nothing, I still like it playing that way. If not, I will be bag defending.
So I saw Frank Reich give a press conference quote on this thing, and he was like, they were like, "What's the deal?" basically, and he was like, "Listen, like, these guys are gonna be fine. Like, we talked to the medical staff about their path to being able to play week 1, and even if they're not fine, we'll be fine." I was like, what the fuck does that mean, man? Like,
Pat is the literal fucking king of press conferences. I mean, every week this guy has something from the press. He's so good at it. Yeah.
Well, you know what it makes me worry about is, could they be a team that signs Kareem Hunt, right?
Totally.
Or Fournette,
yes,
or something like that.
Because
like, they literally might not have a starting running back.
They don't like Spencer Brown or Blackshear at all. These guys have been like total mop-up duty second half of the second preseason game. Like, they do not care about these two guys at all.
Yeah. So I would love a Hubbard ankle update. That would make me feel a lot better.
The Sanders thing for me, like where he's slipping now, like we have him projected, I think, for like 37 targets on the year, but like I think he could catch 50 balls,
He could.
And that's like, we're not projecting anywhere near that. And we still kind of have him as okay. And like, we've cratered his ceiling odds. We've cratered his ceiling efficiency. Like, we've done all these things. And I guess it just comes back to a base assumption, as if you think he's the starting running back when healthy or not. Like, if you think he's kind of the starter, you think if it's like a 2-to-1 ratio with him versus Hubbard, then like he's a pretty good pick at where he's falling now, especially when he falls after the new ADP. I think there's a little bit more upside than people think, where it just, it's hard to parse, like you said, Davis, the Philly stuff. Like, they did not throw to running backs much in base last year, right? But
they were
Bryce Young is probably going to throw to running back in base.
The more damning thing was that they specifically just drafted Kenneth Gainwell to like remove that work from him entirely.
I guess, but as we saw with Ramondre last year, just getting a bunch of bullshit in base.
Yes, totally. Yes, it does.
And like,
it does.
We saw, with Joe Mixon to an extent last year too, obviously much better offense. So it's like not a 1-to-1, but like he was able to get a 10% target share just in base, because of checkdowns and stuff. And I think that outcome for Sanders is being a little bit under appreciated.
The issue for me with Sanders as he goes down into this range is that, like, okay, you're making kind of a status quo bet with Sanders. Like, this is the guy they brought in. This is the guy they kind of dubbed the starter, and you're sort of being like, he's going to get the first crack for as long as he's, not terrible. But he enters the season injured. We don't have like a ton of confidence that he's playing week 1, which that alone, I mean, if he's missing time early in the season, potentially that needs to be factored into the ADP. But then like, I don't really feel confident that he is better than Hubbard. Like, I think they're pretty similar as far as their talent goes based on what Hubbard did. Hubbard was very efficient last year. Like he and Deontay Foreman were very similar.
Amazing college player. Hubbard was.
Yeah,
like,
so
we're counting that.
Yeah, and
less
Sanders
now,
was
but
a
he
backup
so
in college.
Yeah.
I got some breaking news. Sanders is in practice in pads today.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Well,
breaking news.
All right. Well,
Also, Chuba Hubbard had twice the amount of carries his rookie year as he did last year and was at 3.6 yards per carry. So, like,
I don't think Hubbard.
I just don't want to get too recency biased on like, oh, he's a good.
I
runner
do not think Hubbard is like a really good NFL player either.
Like he was
I
all.
don't think Sanders is very good either.
I mean,
yeah, I would say like
Sanders
I think
might have
just
best
get
offensive line in
into
the
these
league last
talent-
year. Like,
I mean, I don't know who the fuck's better between the two of them. I don't really care. I don't know. And if I had to bet, it would
I
be
care
Sanders.
if Sanders isn't. I mean, the practicing in pads thing kind of blows up my argument. But if Sanders doesn't get the first crack at the job, then it definitely matters who's better.
Yeah,
Sure,
he
that's
is
why I
he
went
is
back
going to
to
get
the
the first
base
crack at the
assumption
job.
where, like,
though.
basically what I'm saying is like, if the base assumption is he's the starter, it's hard for him to be a bad pick. If you think that assumption's wrong, we're on a different plane, and like I can see where you would like him. But like if you're under that base assumption, there's not really much evidence to support that. Like
I am once again under that base
super
assumption now that he's practicing. But like if he was potentially missing week 1, then like he by definition would not get the first crack at the job. So
yeah, that's fair. I think with him practicing now is actually like pretty huge news.
I do too.
Like I think this is your buying window. Like
him practicing with Hubbard banged up is a nice window for sure.
yeah, I was gonna say that's the other thing. Is like Hubbard's hurt too. It's not like it's just Sanders that's banged up.
Yeah.
No,
I
and we
think
haven't
this is
said
the
him.
time.
We haven't said his name yet, but Laviska Shenault, running back 1 season. Let's move on. Let's move on. I wanted to call out a couple players that aren't on risers or fallers, but I think had some pretty interesting preseason usage stuff to discuss. The first one is Javonte Williams. We've mentioned him a couple of times. I think just awesome news. Like I know he was in a timeshare with P. Ryan. I don't care about that right now. Just awesome news that he can play in a preseason game off this multi-ligament ACL tear. Like that's awesome to me. I think this price is pretty fair now. I know he's risen quite a bit from he was going in the hundreds in May, maybe 110-ish. I'm fine with this pick. I don't think it's like a smash. I still am somewhat concerned about the injury, but it seems about right to me. Yeah. Anybody have thoughts on Javonte's ADP at 75?
I kind of think he's a guy you buy almost all the way up because a lot of these things, like one, I think the cool thing about Javonte is that he's kind of always earned early down targets. So even if he is in this sort of timeshare with P. Ryan, where P. Ryan's handling the long down and distance, I still think Javonte will earn a good bit of actually, weirdly enough, in a very similar way to Alvin Kamara with the Saints and Drew Brees and Sean Payton, where Kamara would actually get replaced on long down and distance by like just a panoply of dusty running backs through the New Orleans Saints. I mean, he was losing third downs to Mark Ingram, like all these different guys, and it never really mattered because he earned targets on early downs. But also, if we're just looking in the pocket of drafts where he's going, I think there are so few guys you can tell yourself a story about like, oh, this is the guy you need, right? Like, so we're looking at, I like these guys. I like James Cook and I like David Montgomery, but I think Javonte's odds, and especially compared to Miles Sanders and Cam Akers, I think his upside is way better. Like way. I mean, I think there are seasons where Javonte catches like 70 passes, and I don't think that about really anyone else who goes around him.
Yeah, I like Javonte a good bit. We were way behind on him early. We thought the injury risk was understated, and it's gone the exact opposite way, where he's come back even earlier than expected, which I'm surprised by. But given that information, yeah, I think he's a pretty strong pick at where he is. I'm probably not quite as bullish as Davis because I still think like you've got a coaching staff change. You've got an offense that we're still a little bit unsure about. And the injury risk, I wouldn't say is gone. It's like really positive news, but like we had positive news on guys last year and then they just couldn't quite do it and they had setbacks and stuff. But
yeah, Godwin is the guy I'm thinking of who came back from the ACL and immediately injured his hamstring.
Yeah, I mean Dobbins too.
Yeah.
This, which was his injury was most comparable to Javonte's.
And I think that's the because it is still that multi-ligament tear, that more serious knee injury. That the interview that Levitan did with Stefania Bell, I thought was really interesting. Or like there is just like it's your knee. Like it's not like you can just be awesome and like power through like your knee recovery. Like you at some point are gonna butt up against like just the structural issues with the knee itself if you're putting too much on it. So like I kind of hope that they do use P Ryan, but I'm actually still drafting P Ryan because my hope is that they bring back Javonte somewhat slowly and then he crushes down the stretch. But I can use P Ryan early in the season. So I'm drafting P Ryan, but also to your Dalvin Cook point. I mean, I think P Ryan still has contingent value in that way. So I'm going to be a little bit more. I'll probably be like at ADP or a little bit behind on Javonte the rest of the way. He's not someone I want to be like leading the charge on.
Yeah, and this one like strategy tip on Javonte, and I know it always isn't this clean in your drafts, but I would recommend trying to get exposure in the snapshot tournaments rather than BBM because again, I don't think it's like egregious to take him in BBM. He's only risen like 3 rounds, but you are competing with a ton of teams that have gotten him at pick 100. So if you can make that distinction in your drafts, I would recommend being a little bit selective in where you're taking Javonte Williams. Let's talk your Chig Okonkwo. This one I think is like going a little bit under the radar because he's actually fallen in ADP, which is wild to me. I guess a little background on like Chig's ADP. He was kind of in the 120, 130-ish range for a lot of the offseason. He's just kind of like slowly drifted down. I think, obviously the DeAndre Hopkins signing had something to do with that. I think people pointing out that he played sort of a limited bit role last year has something to do with that. But man, his usage in the preseason so far has been really good. He's playing in 11 personnel. That's like absolutely critical for tight ends, and both in terms of floor and ceiling to play in 11 personnel. He's out there doing that. So I guess like you can say he was maybe overpriced before we knew that. And like, I don't know. You can make the argument multiple ways. I really like Chig at 153. I would be chasing him up a couple rounds just based off what he did last year. Curious, Leone, how does the math shake out here with the Titans tight end, even if you sort of bump out his role? Do you think he has enough upside at this cost?
Yeah, I feel like you described it well. Like we were maybe a little too aggressive before we knew he would be playing more, but now that we've seen at least the potential that he's playing in 11 personnel, that's really strong sign. And I mean, you guys talked about with Musgrave, like available targets, with Okonkwo, we have more, I guess, proof that he's good at the NFL level. And we have all the available targets too. Like even if they have Hopkins and a healthy Traylon Burks, like there's just nothing else. So I like Okonkwo quite a bit. And I'd also say like at the tag he's at right now too, is like it doesn't preclude like a late round tight end strategy. Like it's not like he's going where you have to take 2 tight ends. Like you can take 3 tight ends with
you can take
really
Chig,
easily.
You can take Chig, Musgrave, and then Jake Ferguson, and you're like, you're feeling so good.
That's beautiful. Pat, you're on mute.
So I'm
you can take 3 tight ends, and he doesn't even have to be the first one. He could be your
Yeah.
I've come around on Chig pretty significantly. I'm pretty high ahead of ADP now on him. I was just shocked when I did my write-up on the tight ends that how much he had played on play action, which I kind of thought he was going to be this like rotational receiver type, but because he's like short, right? He's like kind of more of like the move tight ends in my mind, but he's like, I think he can play a traditional tight end in 11 and stuff. And to your point about them not having anyone, Leone, like I think they know that. Like I think they're well aware they don't have anyone else.
Kyle Phillips got hurt in their preseason game too.
Yeah. So I mean that kind of directly impacts Chig because they'd probably be earning targets in the same part of the field. But like
they're gonna run plays for him too, like they did at the end of last year. Like even if he does, like they manufacture stuff for him.
100%. Yeah, and they don't throw to the running back that much. Like when Derrick Henry got what, like 35 catches last year or something, when we were like, hell yeah. It's like,
hey, we don't need to slander Derrick Henry on this program.
No, I'm just saying, like,
do you know who he plays in week 17, brother?
Dude, that was not slander. That was like an objective truth. We were pumped. He got 35 catches.
yeah. There's not competition. It's not like McCaffrey's here soaking up targets out of the backfield or something. So
yeah. The last thing I'll say on Chig, and I think I kind of want to be more on this last year's like tracking where like the gross blocking tight ends are moving around the league. Jeff Swaim, like no one wants to talk about Jeff Swaim on a fantasy show or Austin Hooper, but both those guys leaving is like absolutely massive for Chig's
so
role
bullish
because they were replaced with like absolute nobodies. Like Josh Weil was like a fifth round pick the Titans took. Trayvon Wesco is basically like a fullback. I think he played on the Bears last year. He's
a
in
Bear
there.
and a Jet.
Yeah, like these guys, even though like Swaim and Hooper like are bad and no one wants to talk about them, they're so much better than these other guys that are replaced them with that it's just huge for Chig's role to have those backup tight ends like switching out. So I was kind of late on like paying attention to this, but I think the bear case for Chig wasn't thinking about like who the hell are they going to play over him if he's not playing 11 personnel. Like there's nobody who's like a proven NFL blocker.
Well, you know, I would give you one cautionary tale on that because Andrew Beck was playing over Albert O last year.
Okay.
Eric Taubert, Eric Tomlinson. Like I would
Albert O.
They were making up Eric's.
Yeah, they're making up guys who look like Dulcich. There was like a bunch of dudes with long hair that weren't Dulcich running around.
I've lived this. Yes, yeah. Eric and Beck and Saubert had long hair, I think. But I've lived the wanting to make the young tight end happen thing and then being like, look at all these jabronis on the depth chart, and then cut to week one and the jabronis are playing 60% of the snaps.
The irony is after week one, it was like wheels up for Albert O. It was like
he had 5 targets and we were like, oh, it's over. Like Albert O season is here. Yeah.
Oh,
all right. Goodness. Anyways. I still think I'm in on Chig. I chased him up a couple rounds. Let's move on to Michael Wilson. He is up justifiably. I think he's just kind of a clear starter. And usually when rookies are clear starters in the beginning of the year, they don't lose that role. Maybe we can think of some examples of guys that were bad enough that they lost the role, but it's kind of hard for a rebuilding team. It's kind of hard to imagine them going away from Michael Wilson once he has that role. Anyways, I think Michael Wilson, like I don't love his talent, don't love his prospect profile, but he's running routes. He's in the 18th round. Is there anything else to say on Michael Wilson?
I've had to consciously stop. Like people have tried to tell me things about Michael Wilson's college career and like his production. And I've had to just be like, I don't want to know. Do not tell me, because the situation that he's in right now is like, I think, one, it's bullish because he is just clearly ahead of Ron Dale and Greg Dortch. Like he just clearly is he's played every snap with the starting offense in their 2 preseason games. And he's got that, and you can tell yourself this with every Cardinals player, but he's got the upside that Kyler comes back in week 8 and their offense like resembles something like you might just have gotten a massive discount on a guy who could see 50 targets from Kyler Murray or something in the back half of the season.
Yeah, I don't know much about I don't know much about Wilson's profile or anything, but I kind of just blindly think that any rookie wide receiver who's earned his way into starting, you should be taking in round 18.
And he was
16, maybe. Like,
he
moves up.
I take him in round 16.
I don't have nearly enough. I should have more. I think like a lot of the ETR guys aren't on him, but I think just maybe that's like too micro thinking and it's just like a macro. Like
you got to remove your prospect biases when like literally like look at pick 200. Like how many guys project for more routes than Michael Wilson? It's like maybe Mac Hollins, you could tell me projects for more routes. Like maybe Robert Woods projects for more routes, but besides that, like I don't care. He could suck and whatever, pick 200. Like I just I don't get the micro analysis of his profile at pick 200.
Well, we also don't. The micro analysis of his profile, I think, is like it's not that bad of a profile. Like it's not like there's no reasons to think. It reminds me of weirdly almost of like Dameon Pierce. Like Dameon Pierce was he flashed a little bit.
That's such a good point, actually. Yeah.
Right. He didn't get used a ton. He didn't do enough to where we were like, we should be really excited about this guy, but the team spends a little bit of draft capital on him and signals the entire offseason that they're going to be utilizing him right away. And also the team's terrible and should be utilizing their rookies right away to see what they have. So as he moves up, I don't think we should be like shouting like, he never broke out. He's a 5th-year player. Like they're planning on playing him, and he's athletic, and he's going to run a ton of routes. So I don't know. The other thing is I would note that, he only played 6 games in 2022. He had a 30% dominator rating, though. He had a 26% dominator rating as a sophomore, 29% only in 4 games as a junior. He was a 5th-year player. He's definitely like not a good prospect, but he's a 3rd-round pick who flashed a little bit, is athletic, and is now a starting wide receiver and has dominated the summer as far as like team reports go. Why would you not take a chance on that?
He was like actually very similar to Rashee Rice. He was like one of these guys who got drafted because he fit. Mingo actually is like a good comp of like not that good of a prospect, but got overdrafted because every wide receiver in this class weighed 170 pounds. Like it was a situation where like the Cardinals were like, we very specifically want a guy who can do this one thing. And they got this guy in the building who can do the one thing. He shows up to training camp. The thing they think he can do, starting job. I mean, it's really as simple.
It's really easy.
And now I was so very famously, I was a Dortch bro and I had very little, and I am up to 15% Michael Wilson. Like I just am hammering him.
I'm at 10.5% on underdog, and I feel like I'm missed the boat. If anything, I'm at 16% on DraftKings, which is nice. So
you can, if this is Sam, you actually pointed this out on Twitter a couple weeks ago. The DraftKings algorithm is like pretty clearly broken when it gets to the later round stuff. Like it doesn't filter it. So round 20, you can take Michael Wilson, you can take Josh Downs, you can take Tutu Atwell, because these guys, for whatever reason, maybe they're not picked in every draft.
Kyron
I don't know
has
what it
no
is.
ADP.
Kyron has no ADP. Rico Dowdle, who we're about to talk about, has no ADP. Like there are Deontay Hardy has no ADP. Like there are a lot of guys.
You know what I think it is? I bet in the $10 drafts, no one is bothering to select
they don't go. They don't go.
So it's like the volume of drafts is most of the $10, so it keeps those ADPs super low.
It could be. To me, it honestly looks like something's broken, because sometimes and it changes each week, but sometimes this guy, I forget his name. He was some guy who was literally
Charleston Rambo.
Charleston Rambo had an ADP quite high in the rankings, above tons of guys who were legit players. He's a guy from the USFL that was on IR, and he had an ADP. I honestly think there's something wrong with Algo, but anyways, we don't need to go with that. I do think we're going to stay and talk through some of these dusty RB2 situations. Leone does have to run out before we do that, so we'll say bye to Leone. Leone, before you go, give us your favorite closing line value pick that's on the board right now.
Ooh, right now?
Yeah. We can give you a second to think about it.
Yeah. Give me a second here.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a good question.
I can give mine.
Yeah, give yours.
So I am going to say that it's going to be Jeff Wilson with this Devin Achane shoulder injury and Gaskin and Ahmed playing with the first team offense. I think that's so clearly, to me, the way I read that, Gaskin and Ahmed playing is not that the coaching staff likes them. It's that they know exactly what they have in Jeff Wilson Jr. and Mostert has just stayed in the role that he's going to play. But Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to be it's going to be a week from now and he's going to be a 12th round pick, right? I mean, that's just the way this goes with the chain, because McDaniel said a chain is week to week with the shoulder injury, which for a guy who was playing special teams in the second quarter of his second preseason game, it seems that their plans were not to use a chain immediately.
Damn, that's a good pick.
That is a good pick.
That's a really good pick.
I don't know. I'm struggling here to find one guy I think is
classic.
You can also just give. Feel free to give.
I think
your favorite
Quentin
pick.
Johnston has a chance to rise up a decent bit.
I like that.
I just don't know. I think it's kind of capped, so it's not really the best pick for this exercise. But I think the close line value on him could be pretty solid, especially in these managed leagues. Maybe not as much underdog.
Yeah, I could see that if he's clearly ahead of Palmer in some preseason game. I definitely see him. I think he's sliding a little bit recently, but I like that one. Anyways, Leone, thanks for joining us.
Kincaid's going to keep rising too.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Liam's going to make you guys.
Liam's going to get there. I know.
I think Liam's going to get there. I think
I capitulated. Listen, I take Dalton Kincaid.
I just want, for the record, I yelled at Liam because he took Kincaid and Knox on the same team. Okay, my point all along is they're not going to pay off together.
I've done.
I actually think that's
that
fine
case.
because I think they're both going to be on the field. I don't think a ton.
That's the part I don't really buy. I think Kincaid's got to eat Knox, and then he can pay off in a big way. But I don't think that the
Knox is like
baseball
free
thing's happening.
though.
It wasn't. All right, fine. God
Time
damn.
to capitulate. Time to capitulate.
All right, let's see, Leone. All right, we did want to talk through. I know we're running a little bit late here. I do want to talk through these RB2s. I talked about early in the offseason, keeping
Should
track.
we just give our rising picks now so we don't forget?
Oh, yeah, let's do that, and then we'll talk the RB2s. Pat,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have one?
I'm going to say Rashad Bateman, who's back on the field practicing now, and everyone's written his obituary. It's Odell Beckham, guys. Odell Beckham's the starter. Zay Flowers is the best rookie pick. You got to take him in the 3rd round.
Didn't you hear Jack Settleman on the Swolecast last week saying that Odell is the guy you need?
That's what I'm saying. All the slappies are out there talking Odell. That's exactly my point. Thank you for reinforcing my point. All the slappies are Odell. You got to take Odell. But, Bateman's now back out there. He had the cortisone shot that everyone freaked out about, but doesn't seem like that's going to cost him any playing time in the season and not even completely remove his practice reps in the offseason. So I think we're going to start to get, Bateman's good stuff coming out here before week 1. And people are going to stop being so nervous about it. So give me Rashad Bateman at pick near 100 now. I think I'm scooping the bottom here or close to the bottom. We're on the way up.
When I have a Lamar team now, I push him to the 9th. So if I'm sitting there at like pick 84 or whatever, I push it. I wait to see if I get him around the next pick.
I think that's fine, but I think you're going to start getting sniped on that. You're going to get annoyed, and you're going to start prioritizing him in the 8th, and everyone else is going to start doing that, and that's how we get that ADP rise.
I think that's smart. I've been just reaching on him in Lamar stacks because I did get sniped once trying to do that strategy, and I'm like,
literally,
no,
it makes you.
I'm not
insane.
taking
it.
Yeah.
It makes you insane because then you're like,
then you have to
what
take
am I gonna
Odell.
do?
Then you got to.
You don't. You actually don't.
No, you got to do it. You got to do it.
I
Once
am
you take
on
him once-
DraftKings where he goes even later. I took Odell. Took Flowers, Odell to try to get the triple because if you want the triple, that's the only way you can do it. And I didn't get Bateman, and I've already mentioned this on the show like 3 weeks ago, but I think about that team all the time. It's a 5-5-5. I could have Bateman instead of Odell.
It's so annoying. Yeah.
I don't like making this argument because I think it's so hard to predict. But like, if I was going to say like one group of players are the low advance rate, high ceiling players, I think it's Ravens wide receivers. Like, I think it's going to be really frustrating, and like maybe none of them are really going to separate during the regular season, but. Man, just sneaking a Lamar Bateman stack into the playoffs just seems so fun.
What if they're high advance rate, high win rate players?
I think that's what they are.
Lamar,
they could be both. I'm taking a bunch of them, so I hope they are. But yeah,
Lamar seems like he could pretty clearly be one of the answers to the test this year.
Dude, I'm reaching on Lamar so much in the 3rd. Not reaching a ton, but like once like a couple players are gone, like. I'm just taking Lamar over like Ramondre.
So
I'm taking him over all those guys.
I am too. And by the way, comment on why are we so out on Odell? I am actually on Sam's side of this where I'm so in on Lamar that I'll eat my Odell vegetables at times. I'm definitely gonna be underweight, but I'm not out.
I've got some slow draft wisdom for my fellow slappies out there, which is that actually people are so hyper fixated on their stacks. You are actually much more likely to get the 3-4 Lamar Andrews in slow drafts, especially in the puppy. So like I'm in a bunch of these right now, and I think I have 3 Andrews Lamar teams going right now. Obviously not all of them are to the 3rd round yet, but people are just so hyper fixated. They don't catch the fallers as like obviously if it's egregious, if a guy's 10 spots past or whatever, but people are so hyper fixated on their stacks that you're more likely to get it in these slow drafts.
I wish I had some more of those Lamar Andrews. It's tough to do. Anyways, let's wrap here. Sam? Did I? Oh, in my head I thought I did. Did I not say one out loud yet?
I don't think you did, unless we really weren't paying attention.
Whoa, yeah, no, I didn't. I'm gonna go with. Wow, I already had like outlined the argument in my head that I forgot I didn't actually say it. I'm gonna go with Josh Jacobs here. We got kind of the news today that he's back.
That's
it's
a good
kind
one.
of sketchy reporting, but I trust it. Here's the weird thing on Jacobs. I see it going two ways. I think there's this perception that we're getting this huge Jacobs discount now since he's been holding out. That's actually not true. His ADP was like stubbornly like 28 through all of like May and June because I think like all the wide receiver sickos were drafting then. Maybe the market was like sharply baking an 80 holdout risk then. I don't actually think it was. I think it was just like sickos who don't like Josh Jacobs were just not clicking him.
Well,
so
they've done okay so far.
Sure. They've done okay so far. So that's the weird thing though, is that with his holdout, he's only fallen like two picks.
Yeah.
So I was actually making the argument to some people the other day that like, if he reports, is the market even that excited about Josh Jacobs like they weren't before? But I think the market always double counts and reacts to news. So like ultimately when he reports, I think people are going to be like, reminding you of Josh Jacobs' stats last year, whatever. He's going to shoot up to the end of the second round. He'll pass Jonathan Taylor, I think, especially if Taylor's like injury stuff is still like, knocking him down. So
when
that's
Taylor's holdout ends, you think he goes ahead of Taylor or not?
No, probably not.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, to me, like, and I don't know. I'm speculating here. Like the Taylor like holdout stuff feels like worse than the Jacobs holdout stuff, but people have made arguments both ways. To me, the Taylor thing just feels like more personal. Plus, you also have this like legitimate injury thing. That's like I don't think we can completely ignore the injury thing with Taylor. So, anyways, that's my stance on Jacobs. Let's talk through these running back situations. There's a couple things that we learned here in the preseason on these running backs. We don't need to spend a ton of time on each one individually. I think how I'd summarize it is that like Kyren Williams and Keontae Ingram are like very clearly the running back twos on their team. Yeah. But they're on really like gross teams or just like talents we're not sure about. Whereas Rico Dowdle and Chris Evans are in much more exciting situations, but I think there's still like uncertainty as to whether they're actually the running back twos on their teams. And then Josh Kelly is like in the middle where like we don't like his talent.
I think Josh Kelly is pretty clearly the running back two. I just think he might be the clear running back two right now, but I think the chances of him holding that for 17 weeks are so low because he's not very good. And this is what the Chargers always do, or they have done the last 3 years. They've had one guy they thought was going to be the running back two, and then it ended up being Kalen Ballage or Sony Michel or whoever, just because these guys are no good. Dowdle, it is interesting. So he didn't start in the preseason last week. Malik Davis did. Then Dowdle started this week. I would be surprised if Dowdle holds the running back two job over Malik Davis, but I think the weird fly in the ointment here is that Deuce Vaughn seems like a lock for the 53. So there's really only, and Deuce Vaughn's role is sort of separate from Pollard and separate from the handcuff. So there's only one of Dowdle or Davis can make the roster. I really thought it was going to be Malik Davis. I feel less confident in that now, especially because the Athletics Cowboys writers project Dowdle to make the 53 ahead. Kyren is like I have a zero running back team, and I just need someone I think who's going to be on the field in week one. Like you took a zero running back team with Breece Hall and Alvin Kamara, and you're like, I might not have a running back who's active, so I got to take Kyren. Ingram, I actually think is kind of exciting because the Cardinals are going to run a ton, and you really are a James Conner ankle turn away from like an 80% snap share guy. Like truly, like the running back
dude they signed and then they got immediately hurt.
Marlon Mack. So Corey Clement is the running back 3, and he was just playing in the fourth quarter of the second preseason game.
Yeah, it looks like he's behind like Amari DeMarcado now. He like got fully doused.
He's done. Yeah. So that's my take. And then Chris Evans is a good pick. Those are my takes.
I think Chris, Pat, what like who are you taking out of this group, if anybody?
I think you want to take a guy who actually has the role if you're diving into it's like otherwise just like go take Jeff Wilson or Kenneth Gainwell, or like reach a little bit for Jalen Warren or, like all these dudes. I mean, Jalen Warren's like, if you're reaching, you're now taking him in the 10th. So maybe that's not a good example, but there's other guys where I'm pretty confident that I have something and I don't have to spend like that much more. And I can spend my last round pick on Tutu Atwell or Michael Wilson.
That's the other thing I wanted to say is my favorite 18th round picks now are all wide receivers, which was not true a month
Or tight
ago.
ends.
So it's totally different. Yeah.
The 2v2s at tight, like if you take the 13th round tight end and the 18th round running back, I'm almost always prefer the reverse of that, where I've got the 13th round running back and the 18th round tight end, or maybe it's 12th and 18th instead or whatever. But like, if I'm going to dive into these very late round running backs, I would really prefer that they have a role, because I don't think any of them are particularly good. Like, I don't think Chris Evans is good. I don't think any of these guys have ever shown me anything to make me think they're good. I mean, even Ingram, who is like mildly interesting, was a 7th round pick. They signed Marlon Mack to be the backup. Like, when Marlon Mack came in, it was like, yeah, he'll be the number 2 now. And they got hurt. So I don't know. I'm just like, if I don't have a definite role with these guys, what is the point? And that makes me actually the most interested in Josh Kelly and Kyron Williams. So it's the grossest of the two, I think, in terms of the talent. But like, I don't know, like, they're the guys. Like, they're clearly the number 2s there. That might change. But right now, I think I have by far the most confidence that Kyron Williams and Josh Kelly are actually the number 2s. After that would probably be Ingram and Dowdle. But I don't know. I don't know how much confidence to have in Dowdle. I guess you guys could like talk me into Dowdle. I don't even know that much about him.
I like Malik Davis better.
Yeah, I thought Malik Davis kind of flashed. So
yeah,
but he was clearly behind him in last week's preseason game. Again, I think he played ahead of him in the first preseason game, so it's a little weird. But man, I don't know. And maybe ultimately, like, I think these are now awesome guys on your managed league radar, especially like Chris Evans. Like, on my managed league radar, I would be pretty pumped about taking Chris Evans and just seeing if he has the running back 2 role in Cincinnati.
Or Travion.
Yeah, you could take Travion too. Like, man, I don't know. I guess one last question. Like,
that is the way. I agree with that. Like, take the bigger swings and manage. Like, don't. I think it's Josh Kelly, so I'll take Josh Kelly. Like, that's a best ball take.
Yeah,
to be clear, like, bet on talent and manage, because you can cut the guys.
Yeah. The thing is, though, like, in Best Ball Mania, and maybe the best thing to say is, like, maybe wait another week, another 10 days on these guys, and I think the situations will become a little bit clearer with some of them. So I'm not saying you have to take them now. I do think, like, in 10 days, I do want to be taking some Dallas RB2. I do want to be taking some Cincinnati RB2. Just because, man, like, these guys have not been drafted all of Best Ball Mania. And imagine, like, Joe Mixon tears his ACL. Like, aren't you so pumped to have, like, the 50% snap share guy even if it's like a full-blown committee? Like, isn't that such an awesome role to have shares on your team?
You're pretty high. Like, let's just say, for example, Joe Mixon, let's say he gets arrested for whatever, for this incident where he was brandishing a gun before a playoff game. Like, where does Chris Evans and Travion Williams and Chase Brown go? Like, they all get spiked up.
Yeah, but like, you only make a bet on one of those guys in best ball, and you don't get to change the bet later. So like, there's what are the chances that happens multiplied by what are the chances you actually drafted the right guy? And that's, to me, like, in the comment here, Suan said that he's not played, that Kyron Williams hasn't played a preseason game, which is one of the reasons maybe his ADP hasn't changed. I think that's pretty bullish. He's not hurt.
That's funny that for a Ram, not playing in a preseason game means you're playing in the regular season.
Means you're like a starter. Means you're like, not, obviously he's not a starter, and Cam Akers is a starter, but he has a meaningful role.
Did you guys catch that Tutu rested week 1, but Puka Nacua also rested in week 2 with Atwell? So Nacua is like won the 4th wide receiver job, probably.
Yeah, the Rams have pretty clearly signaled who their top 4 wide receivers and top 2 running backs are. Like, I don't even think it's a question that Kyron's like clearly the running back too. It's just like, man, you
have to be pretty confident he sucks. And he's a pass catcher. I know he's not athletic, but he was productive. And
that's the thing, is he's not athletic, but he was good at Notre Dame. Like, he was good. Yeah.
And look, if I'm betting on a guy who's not athletic, I would really strongly prefer that he catches passes, because that's a more skill-based activity where you can actually, right? If you're overcoming athleticism, you want to do, or lack of athleticism, you would like to be doing it with highly skilled stuff. And he's got that. Like, I think I'm going to get more Kyron. I don't have a ton of Kyron on underdog. I've got 5% of him on DraftKings.
I've got a bunch of him on DraftKings.
Yeah. But I'm going to start drafting him we've gotten the information we need on Kyron. I think he's clearly the number
Yeah.
2. I only have 2% on underdog, and I think not that that's a leak because we didn't have this information. We've had it for maybe about a week, and I sort of slept on it. But I think it's time. I think it's time to take Kyron.
These are sort of the micro edges that can be gained, though, by the way, is stuff like taking Kyron Williams in round 18 right now, because also from like a roster construction perspective, having that in your back pocket is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it does, like, for example, you'd be kind of locked out of Michael Wilson right now if you didn't really know what you were doing with those 18th round picks now. Like, you'd have to be like, well, I got to do X, Y, and Z. But now you can, if you can take Kyron or you can take Jake Ferguson, or who weirdly is still available in round 18 sometimes, or Tutu Atwell or whoever, like, it actually buys you a little bit of flexibility back to take some of these risers.
Yeah, it is tough. And Pat made this point because, like, structurally, I'm like so rarely looking for a running back in round 18 because Jalen Warren's available as my running back 5 in round 11 or whatever. And I'm just like, let's be done at running back and get a guy with the role, like it, and then I can get, whatever tight end. I can find tight ends and wide receivers so easily in round 18 that I know have roles. But it's like, I think some percent of the time, like, I do want to embrace the uncertainty with these late round running backs who aren't being drafted at all. Like Chris Evans, I don't know how many BBM teams he's been drafted on, but like 1% of teams, like, again,
that's a really good point.
It's like, the leverage piece there is interesting.
Can I ask you guys something? Because this is like almost a new topic. It is a new topic, but I'm so intrigued by what's happening with the 5-6 turn, where all these wide receivers who are like features of the 6-7 turn are coming up. Pickens, Evans, like all those guys, Waller, not a wide receiver, but non-running back, kind of moving up to the 5-6 turn. And it's actually like still creating this, it's like even more running back value maybe than we had previously, where I thought we were going to get these like running back values this time of year, but it's kind of the opposite. It's gotten even more wide receiver heavy to my mind.
It has, yeah.
It's very surprising to me, and I don't quite know what to make of it.
Yeah, it's led me to bizarre. Like, it's weird. It's led me to more like true hyper fragile builds than I was doing before. I was doing a lot of like running back early, but then still ending up with 5 because I take a couple early, wait a bunch, take some in the Jalen Warren range, end up with 5. This ADP shift has like made me look at like the Sanders, the Akers guys like a little bit more, and then sometimes just stopping at 4, which like you can argue if that's good or bad, but yeah, I agree with you, Pat. I got to think more about it because I honestly don't have a good answer of whether that adjustment I'm making is sharp or stupid. It's just like it feels like to me the quantity over quality at wide receiver thing. I think I have enough answers about wide receivers late that I feel like I'm okay with doing like the 2-4-10-2 or 2-4-9-3 thing and like being okay, but it certainly feels gross. So I don't know. It's weird. I'm surprised that that's happening.
Because like Pickens, I think Pickens is an okay breakout bet, but it was one I was kind of, mostly in on at the early 7th round, but wasn't super excited. Now he's like in the early 6th, and it's like, what is the difference between him and Bateman? Like I think I prefer Bateman.
Well, Sean put Pickens in his 2024 2nd round preview. Okay. That's the difference.
Well, that is the difference, but I guess I'm kind of leaning more towards what you're saying, Sam. We're like, shit, I'll take Dameon Pierce or J.K. Dobbins in the early 6th instead, and that's my RB3. And then maybe I grab one more and I'm done. So yeah, I've been swimming against that current because what I'm wondering is, am I just anchored to those previous ADPs that Jordan Addison should be a early 7th round pick and not a mid 6th, and Mike Evans should be in the 7th?
That's actually it's very good to be cognizant of that and not anchor yourself, because then you're just going to end up drafting a bunch of teams of fallers, which we don't really want, actually,
Yeah.
You got to know when you're taking ADP value, you got to know if it's like real ADP value or if that guy is a sinking stone.
Or if that's the direction the guy is going.
Yeah, which I think I've like had mixed success with that this year, trying to scoop ADP value. Like I think usually I do it right, but like Michael Pittman's an example. I have a ton of Pittman just because I was
So much
scooping
Pittman early.
I was scooping value, and then it turned out I don't think it was really value.
So I'm in this spot. I'm in this spot
Yeah.
with Pittman where I don't even actually like Michael Pittman, but just structurally,
Pretty sure I have fifth round Pittman, and I was getting him at a value.
For
man.
sure I do.
Yeah, it was good value. Couple
value.
I've got
fuck me.
12% Michael Pittman because I get in a spot in a draft where I'm like, my quarterback isn't figured out yet, so I'll just take Pittman and then take Richardson, and that'll figure out quarterback for me. It's like I actually think Pittman's probably a pretty shitty bet, honestly.
Yeah.
Where he goes, but it's like structurally, I need to give myself a high upside quarterback wide receiver pairing.
Well, here's the other issue for me with that, because I caught myself doing that on a pick where I was like, you don't even remotely like Pittman better than this guy you're about to take him over. Like, what do you
for
think?
me, it's Dotson and Pittman. I'm like, I like Dotson way better, but I don't like taking Howell nearly as much as I like taking Richardson.
Yeah. So I'm at 13.5% Pittman. Yeah, on underdog. But the alternate structure there is if you still need that quarterback, and then you just take Richardson anyway, and you go get Alec Pierce. But I have 19% Pierce, so I've exhausted that strategy as well. Maybe I'm just taking too much Richardson, who's my fourth most drafted player. But he's someone I thought about doing for the riser because I think it will occur to people he's the week 1 starter eventually, right?
Yeah, it should. Yeah, I don't know. Pittman, like, I think where he goes now is totally fine. But yeah, it was a mistake for me to like not think about, oh, he's a guy who's going to fall once people do projections, blah, blah, blah. But man, pick 75. The way I've been coping with my Pittman exposure is he's DJ Moore, but 45 picks later.
The way you cope with it is you
That's
just tell yourself, "There's no way I have."
Real cope.
No, your hope is you tell yourself, "There's no way I have him without Anthony Richardson." Even if it's not true,
You definitely do.
You definitely do, but tell yourself
you can't look at those teams. Don't go back.
Can't look at those teams. You got to just tell yourself, I only have him with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson's going to start from week 1. He's going to grow into the job, and by week 17 in that dome game against the shitty Raiders, it's going to be all ironed out, and it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, I mean,
low advance rate, high win rate.
Pittman's got
Michael. Unironically, that actually might be Michael Pittman. That's good.
That's a good way to end the show. Good stuff, guys. I think we'll be back next week doing whatever the high stakes tournament is, an underdog that is out at that point. Might be a bulldog, might be whatever they move on to next, but we'll be doing that draft live here. So we'll send more details out about that. But if you want to draft against us, if you want to, draft against the losers that just scoop ADP value and end up with 15% Michael Pittman, you'll have a chance to do that. But yeah, this was a good show. Davis, Pat, anything you guys have coming up at your respective sites?
JJ's going to be on the Takecast and the Sports Grid Fantasy Football Podcast this week. We're going to do the last 2 years we've done just like if you're not a super virgin and you're just starting to do your fantasy football drafts now, like kind of like a draft guide. So I got that coming up. And then Crane and I are about to have maybe the most virginal discussion in the history of best ball. We're going to talk about how dynasty drafting and dynasty rankings can help you draft best ball teams, which is, I mean, that is down the rabbit hole.
It was Eric's idea. So maybe surprisingly, I don't know that he would have been the favorite to be the most virgin.
Wait, what is that? I don't even understand. I'm not even a virgin enough to understand what is it?
Wow, look at Sam's big time. It's the idea of, I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll discuss what the topic even means once we get on there. Check it out.
Cool.
Legendary.
Anything else for you, Pat?
Yeah. My legendary running back article I'm going to have out later this week. And it's free, guys. It's completely free. So sign up for legendaryupside.com. Get on the newsletter. Get that delivered right to your inbox. If you do want to sign up for the paid version, you can hear me narrate this thing. And that'll cost you $99 for the year, but you can get a $50 underdog credit on the main site there. There's a form you got to fill out to give me your username, and then you get that $50 underdog credit. So pretty sweet deal. And I think because of the way running back ADP has gone, I think I'm actually going to do a follow-up article. Traditionally, I've only done like the legendary running back article through the first, 2 rounds or so. But there's so many high upside guys going in like round 4 now that I think I'm going to do a follow-up article exploring the upside of the dead zone this year. So lots of good running back analysis on the site in the next week or so.
Sounds awesome. We'll be back next week doing high stakes. Until then, good luck in your drafts.